Jake Fader was a climbing legend. He was a loyal friend. He was a risk taker. He was also a drug dealer, a thief, and the man responsible for a young girl's death. And in the end, he was a man torn apart by guilt. His suicide note is the key to it all, a final confession that reveals a truth more complex than simple murder. This is his story, told through the eyes of the one friend who never gave up on him. Join me on the Best Mystery Book podcast, and I, Ian Cartwell, will tell you the whole story.
Chapter 8. Dixon started the briefing at 10 a.m. He noticed DCI Lewis sitting at the back of the room as usual. Steve Gorman and Jane Winter were leaning on the desks nearest the whiteboard. DC Mark Pierce was sitting at the desk Gorman was leaning on. Pierce was a medium build. He had short dark hair and wore a jacket and tie. He clearly took pride in his appearance, and Dixon thought that if he turned out to be half as efficient as he looked, then he would be an asset to the investigation. Did everyone get the emails I sent yesterday morning? All agreed that they had. Good. So you have a reasonable grasp of where we are. Let's deal with the admin first. Jane, can you rustle up a lorry to fetch Jake's car? It's at his parents' place in Braithwaite Place, Burnham-on-Sea. Yes, sir. PPC Colehill has brought over the evidence from Cheddar. I've signed for it. Mark, can you get it booked in, please? There's a telescopic golf ball retriever in my office, too. Yes, sir. I've got his laptop in the drawer of my desk. We need to get it over to high tech. And don't forget his iPhone. Jane? No problem. Any specific instructions? We'll come on to that in a minute. Right? Let's have a look at the players themselves. Dixon turned to the whiteboard and pointed to the photo of Jake Fader. This is Jake Fader, the victim. Jake was smiling at the camera. His blonde hair was tied back in a ponytail. He wore a white Bruce Springsteen t-shirt, and there was a sea cliff visible in the background. Probably Pembroke, Dixon thought. Jake was in his element. We know that he was supplying ecstasy, and he was the prime suspect for the supply of the fatal dose of PMA to Jenna Williams. Steve, perhaps you can fill us in on that? We had a clear statement from Conrad Benton with a positive ID of Fader and the Williams girl in an alley outside Rococo's just before she was found dead. It was fairly straightforward, to be honest, although Benton is not the most reliable of witnesses, perhaps. Why the delay in arresting Fader? Asked Dixon. We were looking for other evidence to corroborate Benton's statement, and I didn't want to let Fader know we were on to him. Simple as that, really. Well, we can come back to that later. You'd have done it differently, I suppose. Seeing as you have asked, Steve, yes, I would. I'd have brought him straight in and let him know I was on to him. Let him sweat, but it was your investigation, your decision, and you made it. I did. Dixon ignored him. What I'm not clear about is whether Fader knew he was pushing PMA on the night in question. We never interviewed him, so I don't know. Is it relevant? Replied Gorman. Probably not, but I'm pretty sure it was Benton who supplied it to him. Jane, dig out everything we have on Benton, will you? When this is over, I'm going to be crawling in and out of every one of that tosser's orifices until his eyes bulge. It'll be a pleasure, sir, said Jane. We know Jake was also stealing peregrine falcon eggs and selling them in the Middle East. His partner in this enterprise was Dan Hunter. Dixon stuck a photograph of Hunter on the whiteboard and drew an arrow between the two. Is there any evidence that Hunter was also involved in the dealing? Asked Jane. No, but the bird's eggs are where the real money is. We need to bring Hunter in straight away. I met him at Jake's funeral on Friday, and he's agreed to help in any way he can. We'll see what that means. At the very least, he's looking at 2 years for offenses under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. But he doesn't know that we know about that yet, and I'd like to keep it that way until I interview him. 2 years. Yes, Mark, it's a serious business. 30 months someone got at Warwick Crown Court only a couple of years ago. Shit. I'm convinced that Hunter holds the key to Jake's murder. Someone was setting up these deals, and it's that person we need to find. Hunter can lead us to him. What went wrong with the second deal, sir? Asked Jane. I don't know yet. That's another question for Hunter. Jake collected the eggs, possibly with Hunter, and then didn't go to Dubai to see it through. We need access to Jake's bank accounts. See if he got his cut of the second deal. Mark? I'll see to it, sir. Let's get Hunter in straight away. Steve, can you make that your priority? I'll conduct the interview. Oak? We'll need to have a look at his computer and phone, too. Mark, can you give him a hand with that? Will do, sir. Which brings me back to Jake's computer, Jane. We need the high-tech unit to have a look at it for any evidence of contact with person or persons unknown. Tell them to check his Facebook account and anything like that. Right, sir. Email will be too obvious, I think. It'll be Facebook messaging or something like that. Skype, perhaps. Tell them to check the FaceTime on his iPhone, too. Will do, sir. Right. That leaves you and me, Jane. We need to get a formal statement from Jake's girlfriend, Sarah Heath. He turned to the whiteboard and stuck a photograph of Sarah Heath next to Jake's. He drew an arrow between the two. Who is that, sir? Asked Pierce. Sarah Heath? Jake's girlfriend. No, it's not. What? Dixon's voice was an octave higher. Well, she may be Jake's girlfriend and she may be called Sarah Heath, but she's also Jenna Williams' sister. Dixon looked at Mark Pierce, then at the photograph of Sarah on the whiteboard. He looked back to Pierce. He saw Lewis sit up sharply at the back of the room. Explain. She was with Jenna's mother when she came to identify the body. Steve. I wasn't there, sir. There's no mention of this in the file. We never made the connection, said Gorman. We were watching Fader, of course, but never saw them together. Were you involved in that, Mark? Yes, but I never saw him with his girlfriend. Maybe she didn't know, said Jane. Maybe she killed him, said Gorman. Well, we'll soon find out. Let's get cracking. Meet back here at 5 p.m. Jane will leave in 20 minutes. Dixon went back to his office. He sat down and started to count to 10. He had reached 6 when the door opened and DCI Lewis came in. The girlfriend it is, then? I doubt it, sir. I don't think she knew. The mother, then? How would she have known Jake was dealing drugs? Sarah could have told her. Unlikely. It's not the sort of thing you'd admit to your mother, is... No, I suppose not. Sarah certainly knew Jake was selling ecstasy around the clubs. But that's it, I think. She may have put 2 and 2 together, of course, but she'd want firm evidence before killing him over it, surely. He may have admitted it to her. True. Just don't rule it out, Nick. We may be looking at a simple revenge killing and unrelated wildlife offenses. They too easy, sir. Dixon tried to sound confident, but there was a nagging doubt in his mind. Something was telling him that Sarah had known. Possibly. He hoped it would come to him before they brought her in for interview. Steve Gorman could just about make out the figure of Mark Pierce huddled on the doorstep of number 12 Wells Close. Burn-on-Sea, his windscreen wipers were working at full speed, but that still only afforded him brief glimpses of Pierce through the torrential rain. He had been listening to the phone in on Radio 5 Live. It was coming to an end and he reached down to switch it off when there was a loud tapping at the car window. He pressed the button just long enough to wind the window down an inch. There's no one in. Try the neighbors. Gorman wound the window back up as quickly as he could and watched Pierce run across the lawn to the property immediately adjacent to 12 Wells Close. It was one of the advantages of his rank. He had done plenty of running about in the rain as a junior constable, and now it was someone else's turn. He looked along the line of 6 modern red brick semi-detached properties, built in 3 pairs in the middle of Wells Close. Number 12 was Dan Hunter's house. Each property had a built-in garage and, Gorman thought, probably 3 bedrooms. The lawn was neat and tidy, and there were rows of flower pots outside the front door and along the path at the side. Dan Hunter definitely needed to get out more. Mark Pierce turned to the car and gave an exaggerated shrug of the shoulders. Gorman pointed to the next property along and watched as Pierce turned and walked across the lawn. He was making no effort to shield himself from the rain now and looked soaked through. Gorman was surprised to see Pierce get a responsive number. 16. He had expected most people to be out. He could see Pierce produce his warrant card. The conversation appeared to be quite animated, at least as far as Mark Pierce was concerned, and Gorman guessed that the elderly woman to whom he was talking was deaf. After a few minutes, Pierce ran back across to the car and jumped into the passenger seat. Pissing down it is. I can see that. I'm bloody soaked now. Pierce reached inside his jacket pocket and produced his notebook. He began making notes as he spoke. Mrs. Morton at number 16 Wells Close. Totally deaf. I thought for a minute she was going to invite me in, but no luck. It was difficult enough having a conversation with her without the rain hammering on the porch roof. She told me that the people from number 14 are on holiday. She last saw Dan Hunter on Saturday afternoon. He was packing his fishing tackle into his car. And she's not seen him since then? No. But then she wouldn't have expected to. If he'd gone fishing on the Sunday, he'd have got back after dark. Not only that, but he's a postman and would have been up and away to work long before she got up on Monday morning. What about his car? Mrs. Morton says that it would usually be parked in the drive. He'd have driven to work on a day like this, though, surely. The sorting offices are just around the corner in Dunstan Road, said Gorman. That's right. Mrs. Morton said that he usually cycles to work. Did she say what type of car he's got? Green and an estate car. That's all she knows. Look, let's try the sorting office. It took less than 2 minutes to drive the short distance to Dunstan Road, another cul-de-sac. The Royal Mail sorting office was at the far end, given away by the high fencing and line of red vans parked outside. A few too many cul-de-sacs in this man's life for my liking, said Pierce. What? What? He lives in a cul-de-sac and works in a cul-de-sac. Bit of a dead-end life, wouldn't you say? Is that supposed to be funny? No, Sarge. It just struck me as odd, that's all. They parked in the car park outside the main reception and walked into the front office. The reception consisted of a counter with a bell on it and a small waiting area. Gorman rang the bell, and they waited. A few moments later, a postman appeared behind the counter. How can I help? Gorman and Pierce both produced their warrant cards. We were looking for the manager. She's not in today. I'll get the assistant manager, said the postman, turning to leave the room. What's his name? Asked Pierce. Linda Dickinson. Gorman glared at Pierce, who shrugged his shoulders in reply. Linda Dickinson checked their warrant cards and then showed them through to her office. She was in her late 40s with bleached shoulder-length hair and wore a Royal Mail uniform. Please sit down. I'm the assistant manager. What can I do for you? We're looking for Dan Hunter, said Gorman. Is he in trouble? No, but we're hoping that he may be able to assist with an ongoing inquiry, explained Gorman. Well, the short answer to your question is that we haven't seen him since he finished work on Saturday. He should have been here today, but didn't turn up. We've tried ringing him at home and on his mobile. No answer. I finished work in a couple of hours and was going to knock on his door on my way home. We've just been there and there's no one in, said Gorman. I wonder what's happened to him then, asked Linda. He's usually very good at ringing in if he's sick or something. Did he mention anything to anybody on Saturday? Not as far as I know. It was just a perfectly normal Saturday shift. What delivery route does he cover? Asked Pierce. He's been doing the rural deliveries recently. Small hamlets, outlying cottages, farms, that sort of thing. He likes being out and about in the van. Did he mention the death of his climbing partner, Jake Fader? Asked Gorman. He mentioned it once or twice. I knew he was upset by it, and he took time off to go to the funeral, of course. Is this anything to do with that? We really can't say, I'm afraid, replied Gorman. His neighbor said he might have gone fishing on Sunday? Asked Pierce. Yes, that's possible, replied Linda. Climbing in the summer and fishing in the winter, I think it was. Did you know him well? Asked Gorman. As you know anyone you've worked with 17 years. Did he have any friends he worked with? Yes, a couple. Tim was probably his best friend. Tim Keenan. Can we speak to him? Asked Gorman. He's out on deliveries at the moment, but he'll be back in a couple of hours. Gorman produced his calling card and handed it to Linda Dickinson. Could you ask Mr. Keenan to call me on my mobile as soon as he gets back? We won't be far away and can pop straight over to have a word with him. Yes, of course, replied Linda. Thank you very much. You've been very helpful. Can we leave our car here? Certainly. Gorman and Pierce walked along Dunstan Road towards the town center. Where are we going? Asked Pierce. Breakfast. We'll take your car if we may, Jane. I don't think Miss Heath is going to want Monty breathing down her neck on the way back. You never know. She may be a dog person. Dixon smiled. They drove in silence out through Bridgewater and north on the M5 towards Burnham-on-Sea. Torrential rain made the driving conditions difficult. Conversation was all but impossible with the noise of the rain and Jane's windscreen wipers at full speed. Once off the motorway, Dixon felt able to speak. You can do the talking, I think. I'll step in and ruffle her feathers when I think the time is right. Look. Tell me something, Jane. What, sir? Is there some 6-foot gorilla who would leap on me from a great height if I asked you out to dinner? Dinner? Yes, dinner. On a date, you mean? Well, that depends. What on? Your answer. If it's a yes, then it's a date. If it's no, then of course it wasn't a date. You just got your wires crossed. Hedging your bets, then. Like any good bookmaker. The answer to your question is no. There is no 6-foot gorilla. But I didn't think that relationships with senior officers were the done thing. I'm hardly the chief constable. When you pass your sergeant's exams, there'll only be one rank above you. I suppose so. I tell you what, here's the deal. As soon as I'm appointed chief constable, I'll dump you straight away. How's that? Dinner it is then, said Jane, smiling. On one condition. Sounds ominous. You tell me about this medal. Over dinner. Done. Jane turned right off Barrow Road into the Grove. Back to the business in hand. Usual drill when we pick her up. Arrest her if needs be, and then take her through the whole story from the top and interview. Press her on the argument outside the Vic the night before. Jake died too. I think that's our man. I'll step in as and when. She's going to love you. Sarah Heath answered the door. She did not look pleased to see them. What the fuck is it now? I am Detective Constable Jane Winter. I believe you know Detective Inspector Nick Dixon, Sarah. Yes, I've told him everything I know. I have to inform you that the death of Jake Fader is now the subject of a murder investigation, and we need a for murder investigation. Yes. We have reason to believe that his climbing ropes were tampered with. Oh, fuck. Sarah started crying. We need you to accompany us to Bridgewater Police Station, please, and I told you everything I know. We believe that there may be further matters with which you can assist us, said Jane, and I must insist that you accompany us to Bridgewater Police Station. And what if I tell you to fuck off? Then I'd have to arrest you, which will make for an uncomfortable ride to the police station in handcuffs and a lot of extra paperwork. Sarah glared at Dixon. Is this for real? It is, said Dixon. But I've told you the truth. The truth. The whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What the hell is that supposed to mean? You've told me the truth, said Dixon. I have no doubt about that. Nothing but the truth, probably. But have you told me the whole truth? I don't think so. What do I tell work? You could try telling them the truth too, replied Dixon. He nodded to Jane to take over. Come on, Sarah. Get your coat. How long is this going to take? That depends on you. The drive to Bridgewater Police Station was uneventful and silent. Sarah Heath was booked in, cautioned, and offered the opportunity of legal representation. She declined a solicitor on the grounds that she had nothing to hide. After the usual introductions and a reminder that she was under caution, the interview began just before 11 a.m. Dixon sat in silence while Jane took a formal statement from Sarah Heath. The interview was tape-recorded, and as planned, covered all of the information already given by Sarah. Jane went through it all again in minute detail, covering where Sarah lived and worked, her relationship with Jake, how and when they met, Jake's drug dealing and known associates, as well as his rock climbing activities and bird's egg collecting. As instructed, Jane questioned Sarah closely on the argument outside the Vic, but got nothing new. During the course of the interview, Sarah's emotions ranged from anger, irritation, and frustration through to tears and sadness, depending upon the line of questioning at the time. Dixon felt sure that her emotional response in each instance was genuine, and whilst no new information emerged, he was impressed with Jane's meticulous approach. After a little over 2 hours of questioning, the interview appeared to be drawing to a natural conclusion. Jane looked at Dixon, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Let's go back to Jake's drug dealing, said Jane. For fuck's sake, we've been through that already. We'll go through it one more time if we may. Which nightclubs did Jake frequent in Bridgewater? Rococo's and the Paradise. They're the only two. I've already told you. Dixon could see that Sarah was becoming angry. He leaned across the table and spoke slowly and quietly. When did you find out that Jake killed your sister? Sarah sat back in her chair. Tears began to stream down her cheeks. She looked up at the ceiling and then back to Dixon. She opened her mouth to speak, but instead began sobbing. Dixon waited. The words were lost in tears. I believe what you've told me so far, so please don't lie to me now. Sarah fixed Dixon in the gaze of her bloodshot eyes. I thought it a bit odd that you bagged up his belongings and dumped them at his parents' house so soon after he died, said Dixon. Sarah sat up in her chair and wiped away the tears with the palms of her hands. I found out the day after he died. On the Saturday? Dixon continued the questioning. Ice. Why didn't you mention this before? Because I knew what you'd think. You'd think I killed him. I don't, as it happens. But then I've been wrong before. I didn't kill him. I needed to know how you found out about Jenna. I was working Friday night as usual, and Jake wasn't in when I got home about midnight. I thought he was probably out in either Bridgewater or Weston, so I went to bed. Go on. He still wasn't back when I woke up in the morning, so I tried his mobile and got no reply. Then his father rang me. I was in a bit of a state, so I told work I wouldn't be in and went to see my mom. Oh, so that's how you found out about Jake's death. How did you find out he supplied the drugs to Jenna? I can't tell you that. Why not? Because you'll think they killed Jake. So, this person knew before Jake died that he supplied the drugs to Jenna? I suppose so. I think we need to have a word with your mother then, don't? We? She didn't kill him. Sarah was now sobbing uncontrollably. Who told her? I don't know, a policeman, I think. And she knew before Jake died that he was suspected of supplying the drugs that killed her youngest daughter. Is that right, Sarah? Yes, but she didn't kill him. Where will we find your mom? I don't know. She's probably still at work. Where is that? The sorting office in Burnham-on-Sea. She's the manager. Steve Gorman was sitting on the seafront with Mark Pierce, enjoying an ice cream, when his phone rang. Steve Gorman. Steve, it's Nick Dixon. Yes, sir. Gorman turned to Pierce and raised his eyebrows. Have you found Hunter? No, sir. He's not at work or at home. We're just waiting for a work colleague to get back so we can have a word with him. What about neighbors? And Mrs. Morton at number 16 Wells Close says that she saw him getting his fishing tackle ready on Saturday afternoon, but she's not seen him since. The assistant manager at the sorting office says that he didn't turn up for work this morning either. Sorting office. Yes, sir. Hunter is a postman. Did you see the manager? No, she's not in today. We saw the assistant manager, Linda Dickinson. The manager, Steve, is Tina Williams, Jenna Williams' mother. Oh, shit. How much longer is this work colleague likely to be? I'm expecting a call any moment now. Ugh, get a statement from him. Ask him if he knows where Hunter might have gone fishing, and if not, what type of fishing he did. Type of fishing? Yes, that will tell us where he might have gone. Then I need you to get over to 17 Basin Bridge Lane, East Huntsville, and pick up Tina Williams. Right. According to her daughter, she knew that Jake had supplied the drugs to Jenna, but at the moment, she is just helping us with our inquiries, right? Yes, sir. We'll be as quick as we can. Dixon stood in front of the whiteboard with DCI Lewis, having spotted him coming a fraction too late to make good his escape. Any developments, Nick? I've interviewed Sarah Heath, who says that she found out after Jake died that he had supplied the drugs to her sister. Why didn't she mention it before? So we didn't think that she killed Jake, apparently, but the reality is that she was probably protecting the person who told her. And who was that? Her mother. Her mother? Yes. Imagine knowing that your eldest daughter's boyfriend supplied the drugs that killed your youngest daughter. Motive enough for murder, surely? Possibly. Anything else? Dan Hunter has gone missing, or at least Steve Gorman can't find him. Gorman couldn't find his own backside with both hands. I'll take your word for that, sir. The interesting point, though, is that Hunter is a postman based at the sorting office in Burnham-on-Sea, where Tina Williams, Jenna Williams' mother, is the manager. Bloody hell. The obvious conclusion is that Tina Williams killed Jake, and possibly also Dan Hunter to shut him up, said Dixon. But it's just too obvious. Or Hunter killed Jake at Tina's bidding. Both are possible, sir, but I still think we're barking up the wrong tree. What are you doing about it? I've got Jake's girlfriend, Sarah, in the cells. Gorman has picked up Tina Williams and should be here in about 20 minutes, I'm told. Good. Let me know how you get on. The interview with Tina Williams began just after 4 p.m. She had been cautioned on arrival at Bridgewater Police Station and had exercised her right to legal representation. This had resulted in a delay of nearly an hour while they waited for a police station-accredited solicitor. Dixon used the opportunity to take Monty for a walk. He had always regarded the accreditation process for solicitors to be something of nonsense, because most of them were clerks without a qualification to their name. Having said that, he hoped that the possibility of a murder charge might bring out someone who knew what they were doing. Tina Williams was in her mid-50s with short dark hair and graying roots. She was wearing jeans and a knitted pullover. After the usual introductions for the tape and a reminder that she was still under caution, Dixon began. We are investigating the murder of Jake Fader, Tina, Sarah's boyfriend. I know. How well did you know Jake? Not that well. He'd only been going out with Sarah for about a year. How often did you see him? Not that often. He was always away climbing, or at least that was what Sarah told me. Did you like him? He was nice enough, but I didn't like what he was doing. Dealing drugs. Yes, You knew he was dealing drugs? Yes. Sarah told me. Why would she tell you that? It's hardly the sort of thing that you'd admit to your mother, that your boyfriend is a drug dealer, is it? I couldn't understand where he got his money from, but I eventually got it out of her. I begged her to leave him, but she wouldn't. When did you find out that it was Jake who'd supplied the drugs to Jenna? Tina looked across at her solicitor, who smiled reassuringly and nodded. She began to cry. I really don't want to upset you unnecessarily, Tina, but it's important that we understand when you found out that Jake may have supplied the drugs to your daughter. We're investigating a murder, and I'm sure you would agree that it gives you a powerful motive for wanting Jake dead. I didn't kill him. When did you find out about Jake? About a week after Jenna died. It was before her funeral. He came to it, the little shit, crying buckets. How I didn't kill him then, I'll never know. Dixon glanced across at Jane Winter, who raised her eyebrows. They could see Tina's solicitor writing furiously in his notebook. Who told you? A policeman. The one investigating the case. What was his name? I can't remember. It was the same policeman who brought me here. What did he tell you? He told me that they had a suspect and were trying to get more evidence against him. He said he was a rock climber. I mean, who else could it have been? He didn't mention Jake Fader by name. No. Tell me about Dan Hunter. What do you want to know? He works with me at the sorting office and has done for about 17 years. He was Jake's climbing partner? Yes. Dan was interested in climbing, so I put them in touch. That was before I knew what Jake was up to. Did they go climbing often? From what I can gather, but I didn't know Dan that well, to be honest. He's a postman, and I'm the depot manager. Were you aware that Dan didn't turn up for work today? No, I've had the day off. Linda, my assistant, would have sorted that out. Dixon paused. Are you glad that Jake is dead? Tina's solicitor looked up. My client doesn't have to answer that question. It's all right, said Tina. No, I am not glad he is dead. It doesn't bring my daughter back, does it? I'm glad that he's out of Sarah's life, but not that he's dead. Dixon brought the interview to a close. It had been short, but it had confirmed what he already knew. Neither Tina Williams nor Sarah Heath had killed Jake. He turned to Jane Winter. Release them, Jane. Ask the desk sergeant to lay on a car to take them home. Lewis will go mad. This isn't about the drugs, and you and I both know it. This is about the bird's eggs. I'll stake my job on it. I think you just did, sir. Dixon was sitting in his office 10 minutes later when the door flew open and Steve Gorman barged in. You let them go. What the hell did you do that for? Shut the door. Dixon spoke calmly and quietly. Gorman shut the door. Dixon gestured to the chair in front of his desk. Sit down. Gorman sat down. Dixon waited until he did so, and then stood. What did I say? Up. First things first, Steve. If you barge into my office and speak to me like that again, you and I are going to fall out big time. Gorman opened his mouth to reply, but Dixon dismissed it with a wave of his hand. Secondly, it is my investigation, and if I choose to release a suspect or suspects, then that is my decision and mine alone. Clear? Yes, sir. You should also be aware that Tina Williams has confirmed in interview that you gave her sufficient information to identify Jake as the suspect in the death of her daughter. I didn't tell her anything. You told her that the suspect was a rock climber, and that was enough, apparently. Oh, shit. Thanks to you. She knew before Jenna's funeral that Jake was the prime suspect. But she didn't kill him. No, I don't think she did. Anyway, this is going to be out of my hands now, I'm afraid. Yes, sir. Now, let's try and get this investigation back on track. Get on to DVLA and get a detailed description of Hunter's car. I also need the statements that you took this morning." "Yes, sir." Gorman got up to leave Dixon's office. "Make sure everyone is available for a short meeting at 6 o'clock, will you?" "Yes, sir." "Not a good day, all in all," said Dixon. Mercifully, DCI Lewis was not listening in. "What progress on Hunter's car, Steve?" "It's a green VW Passat estate, sir. 2005, so it's the old shape. Registration number 5922, said Gorman. "Must be a personalized number plate or something, I suppose." "Yes, sir." "We need to find Hunter tomorrow," Dixon addressed Steve Gorman and DC Mark Pierce. "I want you two sat outside his house first thing in the morning, and if he hasn't turned up by lunchtime, we'll get a warrant and go in." "Is stealing birds' eggs an arrestable offense, sir?" asked Mark Pierce. "Yes, it is. We also need to be looking for Hunter's car. We know he hasn't been seen since he went fishing, assuming, of course, that he actually went fishing. We know from the statement from Tim Keenan that Hunter used to go pike fishing this time of year, so we need to get all of the car parks along the King Sedgemore drain and also Gold Corner pumping station checked for starters. Mark, can you get the local boys onto that in the morning?" "Yes, sir." "Any news on the bank statements?" "I've got faders and there's a transfer in from a Swiss account and then the payment out to the Subaru garage. Not much else. How much else?" "Still waiting for Dan Hunters to arrive," replied Mark Pierce. "Jane, can you chase up the high-tech unit, please? We still haven't had their report on Jake's laptop and iPhone." "I'll get onto that first thing in the morning, sir." "Well, that's enough for today. I can feel a beer coming on, I think." Chapter 9. Dixon spent the morning reviewing the enhanced photographs and video footage of Jake taken by the tourists in the gorge. He could see Jake fighting the shakes until he could hang on no longer. He felt mixed emotions now. His sadness tempered by the knowledge that Jake had been dealing drugs and stealing birds' eggs. But he remained grateful that the cameraman had turned away at the finish. He learned nothing new from the footage, nor did he from Jake's bank statements. Apart from the money arriving from Switzerland and the payment to the Subaru garage, there was very little activity, confirming, perhaps, that Jake lived hand-to-mouth on cash. Dixon knew that he needed to track down the dealer with the contacts in Dubai and the 70,000 pounds from the sale of the second batch of eggs. It was looking increasingly unlikely that Dan Hunter would be able to shed any light on this. Lunchtime had come and gone with still no sign of him, and a search warrant was now being executed at 12 Wells Close, Burnham-on-Sea. Hopefully, that would turn up something useful. Just after 3 p.m., there was a knock on his office door. It was Jane Winter. "Jane, any news on Hunter's bank statements?" "Not yet, sir. But we have found his car." "Where is it?" "Gold Corner pumping station." "I told him to look there this morning. For heaven's sake." "And there's some abandoned fishing tackle out on the South Drain, is it?" "Yes, it is. Ring Steve Gorman and let him know. Then get your wellies." Dixon turned right into the narrow country lane on the sharp bend before he reached East Huntsville. He followed the single-track lane carefully. He knew from experience that there were deep drainage ditches either side, and the low evening sun was directly in his eyes as he headed towards Gold Corner pumping station. Some relief from the glare was offered by the occasional bush or tree, but the Somerset levels were a bleak and open place at the best of times, offering little in the way of shade or shelter. He arrived at Gold Corner pumping station and pulled into the car park to be met by P.C. Stevens, who had made the call. Dixon was assured that scenes of crime officers were on their way, and that a flatbed lorry had also been summoned to recover Hunter's car. "What about divers?" "Coming from Bristol, sir. It's likely to be dark before they get here." "Better tell them to bring their torches then." "Yes, sir." "Any CCTV on the pumping station?" Dixon pointed to the large brick and glass building at the junction of the South Drain and the River Huntsville. "Oh, I'll check, sir." Dixon went to the back of his Land Rover and put on his Wellington boots. Jane did the same. "Which side of the drain is it, Constable?" "That side, sir," said Stevens, gesturing to the north. "Do you know the way?" "I do. Yes, thank you." Dixon crossed the road and went through the wooden 5-bar gate. Jane followed. They took the muddy farm track around to Thee. Right, over the river crypts and went into the field adjacent to the south drain. They walked along the north bank of the south drain in the short section that ran behind the farm and the pumping station. Dixon could see fishing tackle hanging in the trees. They followed the bank around to the left and out onto the main section of the drain. The south drain was part of the original drainage system that created the Somerset levels. It was 30 yards wide and 12 to 15 feet deep. The Environment Agency had announced some time ago their intention to dredge it along its full length to create a deeper channel. And so the North Somerset Angling Association had given up their license to fish it. There had been no maintenance of the banks in recent years as a result, and they had become overgrown. Nevertheless, it still held a good head of fish and was a popular venue, particularly now that no angling club license was required. In the distance, Dixon could see several figures standing on the north bank. He guessed that this was where Dan Hunter had been fishing and set off along the bank to get there as quickly as possible. Jane followed, struggling in the mud. Dixon arrived at the fishing umbrella to see 3 uniformed police officers and the farmer, Michael Wilkins. Dan Hunter had chosen his spot carefully. His seat was sheltered by the bank rising up on either side, with the umbrella acting as a roof of sorts. There were also small bushes on either side offering more cover. "No sign of Hunter, I suppose?" "No, sir." "Have you looked?" "We've checked in the immediate vicinity." "What about footprints?" One of the police constables gestured towards the cows. "They've been all over the place, sir." "They're a bit inquisitive, I'm afraid," said Mr. Wilkins. "You'll be the farmer?" asked Dixon. "Yes." "Do you know how long this stuff has been here?" "Not really. It wasn't here when I came out on Saturday, but I've not been out here since then. Not till today." "What about the car in the car park?" "I don't take much notice of them. They come and go, and there's a big hedge between my house and the car park anyways." It was a typical fishing scene, although the fisherman himself was missing. There was a reclining chair under a large green umbrella with a box of fishing tackle next to it, and a landing net lying in the grass. Dixon noticed an area of what looked like blood spattered on the underside of the umbrella. He noticed that there were 2 sets of rod rests, but only 1 fishing rod. He produced a pair of disposable rubber gloves from his pocket and put them on. He reached down, picked up the fishing rod and reeled it in. There was nothing on the line, and the bait had gone. He placed the hook in the first eye on the rod nearest the reel, wound the line tight and replaced the rod on the rests. Then he picked up a set of forceps and the landing net and set off along the bank towards the footbridge. Jane followed. "What are we looking for, sir?" "The other fishing rod." "Why?" "Why? You'll see." 50 yards further along the bank, they could see the fishing rod floating on the edge of a patch of lily pads. Dixon was able to reach it with the landing net and draw it in close to the bank. He reached down, picked it up and wound the line in. Almost immediately, the rod arched over. There was a fish on the end. Dixon had the fish in the landing net within a couple of minutes. "You've done this before, sir," said Jane, "many years ago. Is there no end to your talents?" "No, there isn't," replied Dixon, smiling. He flipped the pike onto its back in the long grass, placed his fingers under the gill rake at the front of the jaw, and then opened the fish's mouth. He reached in with the forceps, unhooked it, and then held it gently in the water until it swam away. It took no more than 60 seconds. "Well done, sir." "She'll live to fight another day, she?" asked Jane. "You can tell by the size. Males don't get that big. There's a joke in there somewhere." They walked back to the umbrella to find scenes of crime officers arriving with PC Stevens. "The divers will be here in about 20 minutes, sir," said Stevens. and there's no CCTV on the pumping station, unfortunately. Thank you, Constable. Dixon turned to the scenes of crime officers. There's blood spatter on the inside of the umbrella that you'll need to take a close look at. You may get something from the footprints hereabouts, although I'm told that the cows have been wandering about everywhere. I'm guessing our man is in the water. The senior scenes of crime officer was a tall, balding man with a mustache who Dixon had encountered before. His name was Watson, and whilst Dixon did not find him an altogether personable man, he was at least efficient. How long has it been? Do we know? Asked Watson. Not with any degree of certainty, replied Dixon. The farmer says that there was nobody here on Saturday, and we know from his neighbor that Dan Hunter came fishing on Sunday. I'd be surprised if he was night fishing on a Sunday, so he should have gone home that evening ready for work the next morning. Any longer than that, and I'd expect to see his body floating on the surface anyway. How do you work that out? Asked Jane. It's all about gas. The water is still warm, so it'll slow the decaying process but not stop it. It should take 3 or 4 days for putrefaction to produce enough gas to make a body float this time of year. Jane looked surprised. We had a body in the Thames at Putney when I was in London. The scenes of crime officers, under Watson's guidance, began setting up arc lamps and a large tent around the fishing umbrella. Dixon could see the flashes of cameras all around. There was a need to work relatively quickly because rain was forecast. Jane Winter went back with Mr. Wilkins to the farmhouse to take a statement from him, while Dixon remained at the scene. The Devers arrived on schedule. There was still some light and a search of the immediate vicinity would be possible. At Dixon's request, B.C. Stevens had checked with the Environment Agency, who had confirmed that the pumping station had been in operation on Monday and Tuesday morning. It was possible, therefore, that the body could have moved some way along the south drain in the current. A more thorough search would be possible in the morning. Within a few seconds of entering the water, the divers reappeared, giving the thumbs-up signal. Dixon turned to P.C. Stevens. Better get the pathologist out here pronto. Dan Hunter's body was laid out on a tarpaulin on a level section of bank behind where he'd been fishing. The scene's crime officers immediately set up another tent covering his body. The pathologist will be here in half an hour, sir, said Stevens. Thank you, Constable. Dixon knelt over Dan Hunter's body. He guessed that Hunter had been lying face down in the water. His head was a livid black and blue, and yet his hands were still the normal skin tone. There was otherwise very little evidence of putrefaction. The water had done its job. Dixon estimated that Hunter had been in the water for no more than 2 days, which gave a time of death of the previous Sunday afternoon. But the pathologist would no doubt be more precise. There were no obvious signs of a struggle apart from a small bullet hole, or at least what looked like a small bullet hole, in the corner of Hunter's right eye. Dixon thought that it was possibly a .22 caliber pistol. He suspected that there would be an exit wound in the back of Hunter's head, but he would need to wait for the pathologist to arrive to move the body further. This would certainly explain the bive. Blood spatter on the inside of the umbrella. He wondered whether a .22 caliber bullet would have killed Hunter on its own, but no doubt the pathologist would be able to confirm that too. At the very least, it would have incapacitated Hunter, and he then either fell or was pushed into the south drain. It was academic, of course, but Dixon guessed that Hunter had still been alive when he entered the water. Jane Winter reappeared behind Dixon. Hunter? Yes, looks like a small bullet hole in his right eye. See it? It's tiny. Probably a .22 at close range. Is there an exit wound? I'll leave it to the pathologist to examine him. Must be, though. How else do you explain the blood on his brolly? One thing's for sure. What? If there was any doubt about Jake's death, this one's definitely murder. Is there any doubt about Jake's death? Well, it's not as clear-cut, is it? No, I suppose not. It tells me you're right about the drugs, though. Hunter wasn't involved in Jake's drug dealing, was he? So why kill him? It must be related to the bird's eggs. Talking of birds, Jane, look at that. Dixon stood up and pointed across the fields on the far side of the drain. A huge cloud of starlings was swirling in the dusk sky, illuminated only by the sun, and it was by now below the horizon. Tens of thousands of birds swooping and diving in concert, creating waves and shapes silhouetted against the red sky. They watched in silence for several minutes, until the cloud dived towards the ground and disappeared. "I'd heard about that, but never seen it," said Jane. "Somerset levels are well known for it, apparently." "Certainly helps to pass the time while we wait for the pathologist," replied Dixon. "We're no nearer finding him, though, are we, sir? Or her?" Jane rolled her eyes. "No, you're right, we're not," said Dixon. "We need to focus on what we know, I think." "Like what?" "Well, Jake and Hunter were stealing peregrine falcon eggs, selling them in Dubai and making a lot of money doing it. Someone was setting up the deals, and it would be reasonable to assume that they were taking a cut for doing so." "How do you know someone else was involved?" "I don't have any evidence, granted, but it must be right. Neither Jake nor Hunter could have done it themselves, not even over the internet?" "I doubt it. Let's hope high tech finds something on Jake's computer one way or the other. And then there's the person Jake was arguing with outside the Vic the night before he died. Who was that?" "It's a shame Sarah Heath didn't get a good look at him." "It is. We'll get a look at Hunter's computer now, too. Don't forget, sir. PC Stevens appeared in the arc lights." "Pathologist has arrived, sir. PC Clark is going to bring him out here." Dr. Roger Poland was the senior forensic pathologist based at Musgrove Park Hospital, Taunton. He was a large man with graying hair and a direct manner evident from rather perfunctory introductions. Dixon decided that he liked him anyway and watched with Jane while he examined Hunter. "Any idea how long?" "He was last seen alive on Saturday afternoon, as far as we know. There was no one fishing here on Saturday either, according to the farmer," replied Dixon. "Probably came fishing on Sunday then." "It looks like it. He didn't turn up for work on Monday." "There's a small bullet hole in his right eye, probably a .22 caliber." Poland rolled Hunter towards him and looked at the back of his head, and a corresponding exit wound just below and behind his left ear. "Is say .22 pistol powerful enough for that?" asked Dixon. "There are a couple that could do it at close range, particularly if the bullet enters the skull through the eye socket. A Sig Sauer, perhaps." "Was it at close range?" "Almost certainly. Judging by the angle, I'd say the victim was seated and the killer standing." "What about the bullet?" "If he was sitting on that chair with the killer to his right then, on the angle, the bullet is almost certainly in the water." "One for the divers in the morning then. Good luck to them." "Would it have killed him instantly? Does it matter?" "I'm not sure that it does when you put it like that." "Possibly. I'll soon be able to tell if he was still alive when he went in when I open him up. I'll do the PM in the morning and let you have my report by lunchtime, okay?" "Yes. Thank you, Dr. Poland. You're the new chap?" "Yes," replied Dixon. "We must have a beer sometime. And it's Roger, by the way."